Hey guys, this is Jason
This is
Douglas.
Adam MacArthur, voice of Yuji Itadori.
This is Derek Snow, the voice of Shinra Kusakabe.
This is Phil Parsons, voice of Kenny the Ripper Ackerman.
It's Merc Nguyen. You're watching Voice of the Heroes. Take it away, Flea Boy.
What's good, everybody? You already know who it is and what it is. And if you don't, it's the one and only one, Flea Boy Jetson. And you're watching Voice of the Heroes Podcast. So if you're tuning in for the first time, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, click that notification bell so you can be notified for upcoming discussions and interviews on your favorite heroes and villains from around the world. And today we are doing a different type of interview. And I'm extremely excited on this one, to be honest with you, not only because he's written for some of my favorite heroes of all times. He is currently one of Marvel's greatest writers of today. Our special guest has written comics. Let's just hear the rundown of some of the comics he's written. I Am Iron Man Limited Series and a few more other Iron Man titles as well. Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood, Avengers, Unlimited Infinity, Marvel's Voices of Wakanda Forever, and he is currently writing X-MANHUNT Omega and the Solo Storm series. That's right. Let's welcome Murewa Ayodele to the show.
Hi, it's good to be here.
If you understand why we laughing, man, I might put in a bloopers episode, so make sure you hit that membership because we are definitely going crazy. But before I get started, man, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show and that you have really been cooking with this new Storm series, and you inspired me on so many levels. We'll talk about that a little later. And I can't wait to see what you do with X-MANHUNT Omega. I kind of see where the story is going because they kind of, gave the build up with Professor X and things like that. And you in issue 8, I believe, Storm's interrogation goes a little south on the cliffhanger. So I'm assuming that goes. Now, I haven't read issue 1, but issue 1 of X-MANHUNT is currently out, right?
Yes, it's out.
Yeah, so as of recording, that's out right now. And so is issue 8 of Earth's Mightiest Human, Storm, issue 8. So make sure y'all check that out, man, if you haven't checked it out. And so let's talk a little about issue 8, right? Full spoilers, man. So if you haven't read that book, please go catch up on the series and come back to this interview because I am hugely excited to talk about this series, man. This is one of the, and don't get me wrong, I've always been a comic book fan, right? But I haven't, it's only into my older years that I've really started to collect a lot of these series. Like Ultimate X-Men, I'm a huge fan of Peach Momoko, the Phoenix series going on, Wanda, Magic, and of course Storm. Now the X-Men series been all over the place. You got too many X-Men books for me to actually, but Storm has been so good. And issue 8, not only do we get a Storm and Thor team up, we get introduced to the first Storm God, and I think I wrote down the line somewhere, but man, you have painted one of the, just with the words alone, probably one of the biggest big bads that I can't wait to see in comics. You said something along the lines like he wove eternity as his cloak and forged death into his war club. The Phoenix Force was his armor, and infinity was his shield. Man, tell us a little bit about that writing and what was going through your head in issue 8.
What the thing about comic books, like you said, I'm also kind of newer to comics, because I grew up in Nigeria, where in a small town in Nigeria where I didn't get access to a lot of comics. So it was when I was much older that I got access to all those stuff, and it's. The first books I was reading were all the big events, things like Civil War, things like Bendis was cooking with, New Avengers. And then I discovered Donny Cates with his, big stuff, Secret Wars by Jonathan Hickman and all these big stories. And so those were like some of my first sets of introductions into Marvel because I love stories like that. So it's something I've always wanted to do myself when I have the opportunity. So everything we're doing right now is building up to a story arc that is Thunder War. And I know that the big bad of this event has to be super powerful, has to be a badass, and has to have a grudge, and something, and so that's why I created that storm god. I wanted something to be like the opposite of storm,
Mm.
all these other storm gods in the Marvel universe are old beings, but Storm is very young, she's max, 30 years old. She's a mutant, she's mortal and all those things. So I wanted someone that is like the opposite. So, so I did my research, like in real life, what's the oldest, storm god that we know based on, written text and everything. And it's Baal Hadad, the Mesopotamian storm god. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring that storm god. I'm going to bring him into the Marvel universe, and I'm going to create a mythos around it in the Marvel universe and define how strong he is, how powerful he is, and things like that. And so that's where my head was like, I want someone that, when he shows up, it's not like, oh yeah, if the Phoenix could easily just help Storm and solve this problem. Like, even if the Phoenix shows up, it's not going to be enough to stop this god, So that's the big thing that was in my head while I was crafting this villain, because I'm building to this big story arc called the Thunder War, and it's going to be nuts. I'm already getting I'm already getting pages on it and stuff, and it's crazy good. So yeah,
I'm
it's exciting
so
stuff.
excited for that, man. I am no lie. I can't like compose myself right now because that's how much I'm like hyped about this. And not even just that, right? You put in so many elements into issue 8, so many little storylines. It reminds me of an actual like event, like not a event, like an animated series or something. Like so many different
Yes.
storylines. Like you got Maggots tournament going on, which I love because you got some heavy hitters in there like Juggernaut, She-Hulk, Armor.
Abomination.
Oh yeah, this Big Bertha's in here. You put Big
Yeah,
Bertha
I
in the
love Big
tournament.
Bertha so much.
So you put so many, which I can't wait till the tournament begins. We didn't get too much on it in issue 8. I think about like 2 pages,
Yeah.
something like that. But I can't wait to this tournament. Hey, I'm rooting for She-Hulk, man. That's my girl. So I hope she gets some love. But I can't wait to see that tournament. And then you incorporated the federal agent side of things, which I thought was very unique on how the government is using. I don't know if he's an alien or mutants. I really didn't pick. I'm assuming they're mutants, but I don't know. Like, and searching for Charles and her helping Charles do whatever, I guess leads up to X Manhunt Omega. Tell us a little bit about that series and tell us, what readers can expect.
Okay, so when it comes to how I'm structuring this series, moving forward, one thing I noticed when I started into comics, I think maybe because I started reading some of the big stuff first, so when it was time to start with, knowing that, oh, so there's a Spider-Man series that comes out every month, so there's this, and when I started discovering all those things, I found out that, very quickly, I might get bored of them or just stop following them because it starts feeling almost repetitive and it doesn't seem to engage with me enough. So it's always been the plan that, the Storm series will start with,
I think you
building
cut
up and
out.
building up.
Oh, you're good now. You're good now.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Okay. So while working on Storm, I wanted to write a series that they have some of the weaknesses or characteristics of books that couldn't keep my attention for a very long time. And that's like, when the story was starting, you have this single POV, almost every page has Storm in it, so just like a typical solo story. But as it's going to start to spread out, like all those, like you said, animated shows that we loved growing up, like what Invincible is doing right now that we're loving so much. You have the stories with the Viltrumites that, oh yeah, they're coming to Earth, and you have stories. Sometimes you just see Battle Beasts doing something cool here, and then you follow stories about the Guardians of the Globe, and all these things, but everything still centers around Invincible. So we get to get little snippets of all these stories, everything building up to this single thing. So, and that's the approach that the Storm series is moving towards. So we're going to be touching up on a little things here, but it's all building up. It's all linked to Storm, and it's all building up to this big conflict, And when it comes to the FBI thing, it was inspired by a lot of things, in the previous Storm solo series that I think happened like about 10 years ago, she had a clash with the FBI as well. It's also something that when I was doing research into American history, I've seen that a lot of black movements and stuff was somehow sabotaged by the FBI at some point. And I also want to also play around with a few things where sometimes we can be strange as human beings. In this FBI, the leader there is an alien, and for some reason it seems that they trust an alien more than they trust mutants, who is a fellow, and it happens a lot here. You can see people sometimes being like, oh, they don't trust this other ethnic group in America, but because this other group outside the country has the same skin color as you or something, or one weird thing, you're like, oh yeah, we trust them more or something, and it's some of those ways that we behave as humans that I also want to capture in the book. And when it comes to the Charles Xavier of the whole thing, the event of X-MANHUNT, which was led by me and Gail Simone, is centered around Charles Xavier was in prison. He committed great atrocities in the previous era. He committed a lot of crimes, and he's answering to them. But Jonathan Hickman is building this big epic story called Imperial, where he will need Charles Xavier in space, So, and the X-MANHUNT event is basically about how he escapes from prison and how he goes and how he visits a lot of his former students, people he has had a relationship with in the X-Men and everything, till he eventually leaves Earth. And the conflict it faces, how Cyclops doesn't want him to leave the planet, wants him to go back to prison, but Storm wants him to leave, and so many things happen there, and Storm is one of the mutants that fought for him to stay, for him to leave, and go and be with his daughter in space, to go and be in that story by Jonathan Hickman. So now, being the forgiving person that Storm is, that, oh, I forgive you, go and be with your child, and stuff like that. And it's like, you can't just take matters into your hands. You just can't take laws into your hands. So you see Storm, the issue 8 and issue 9 of this Storm series, dealing with the repercussions of those actions that she took, that the government is not going to have it, you just let a prisoner go free, and so, yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting concept. We're going to see how, one thing I've always wondered about is, superheroes sometimes behave like police officers in the Marvel universe and sometimes as free agents. And I want to see that balance. Some are more hated by the police, some are more loved by the authorities. How do they interact together? How do they work? We don't usually know. Sometimes you see the police, like they hate Spider-Man, they're trying to arrest him. And then sometimes you see them working with someone like Iron Man, why do they hate Spider-Man, and why are they all up in, Iron Man's, business, even if he's not rich, and all those things like that. So those are the kind of things I want to kind of like explore with this Storm series, and see that interaction that, superheroes have with the authority in the Marvel universe, and see how it works.
Oh man, I can't wait for issue 9, which drops June 4th. Now, we did get to see little elements of the storm god that you've created, the big bad for this series. Haddad, I think is his name, right? Am I correct?
Yes, yes,
Haddad
yes,
is the
Haddad.
character's name. Now we do know to tackle that issue before it took the one to be above all, which we don't get a lot in comics. Anything with him. So I'm interested to see. No spoilers, but I would like to see him, get some type of shine because we get all these other deities and all these cosmic threats, but we never nobody really knows too much about the one above all. So to see that this big bad was such a threat, it took him to contain this force. I'm excited to see what you do with that. Now, let's talk a little bit about the massive power up you gave Storm. Because for people who don't know, she had a huge power up within this series. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Um, so okay, when I was trying to get into comics, before I had access to Marvel Unlimited, Comixology, and all those things, what I used to do was watch YouTube channels, and they would give all these analysis videos of all these characters and stories that they've gone through, and some of the videos I particularly always enjoyed were ones where they described, all these characters and their position in power and different things like that. When they start saying, but we have Sentry, but then we have Hyperion, but the most powerful of all of them is the one above all, and I heard so much about one above all, one above all, one above all, but you never see much in comics like that. And I'm like, why do you talk about this character so much, but we never see him? And then later I found out that it was in this Spider-Man comic, Sensational Spider-Man, but it was more like just to talk with Spider-Man and things like that. Like, I want to tell a story where we see the one above all and we see the effect of his power and his position and everything, how he interacts with the world at large. And that also comes to Storm as well. We see a lot of stories about, oh yeah, Storm can do this. Storm can change the electricity in your mind. Storm can do all these wonderful and powerful things. But a lot of the stories never show that, never reflect that. Sometimes when a big threat happens, suddenly Storm doesn't feel as powerful as she has been said to be. And I'm like, okay, I want to tell a story where we allow her to cut loose. We allow her to be as powerful as she can be. This story of giving Storm this power boost, making her the Eternal Storm, was inspired by a comic that came out like decades ago called Rogue Storm by Chris Claremont, where Storm, her clothes turned all white and gold, and she was floating in the sky, and she was like, I am a goddess, and even Doom with all his power to flee and all these things. And I'm like, and then you see that form, that Rogue Storm form, never shows up in comics again, ever again. And I'm like, what? So it's like she's allowed to be powerful, she's allowed to display things, but then that's all. It's never used again. There's this comic too called the Black Guardians of the Galaxy and X-Men Black Vortex or something like that, where we see that, oh, Storm has this incredible powerful form, these are true form, but that's the only time we ever see it. We never see it again as well. So I'm like, okay, I want to do a run where we introduce a powerful form of Storm and we get to see it in action. Enough of teasing us, enough of just giving us all these things like, oh yeah, anytime we are giving all those videos and doing all those like, oh, do you know how powerful Storm is? In this so book, she had this form that she's this powerful, she's this in that comic, he said she was as powerful as the Phoenix, and so many times. You just say all these things, but we never see it in action. I want to write a series where we don't just say, oh, this person is powerful. We get to see that power in action. And these are something we've always wanted after, we've always wanted as fans. Why can't we write them as creators? So yeah, that's the inspiration for that
I
power
love
boost.
it, man. Storm is in good hands with you, and I love it, love it. And a lot of the women X-Men characters have been getting some power-ups too. You had Scarlet Witch in a recent
Yeah.
series get a huge power-up or ability we never even seen her display before. Phoenix, Jean Grey
Phoenix
has
is killing
a
it.
huge power-up recently. Where would you scale power-wise Storm with all these deities and being? Where would you scale her right now in that echelon?
Like, what it's something that is we're going to see a little bit of it in Thunder War. And it's that all three of them have their own realms. And it's when it comes to the Phoenix, his realm, our home place is the White Hot Room. That's where Krakoa is right now. And when she's there, she's basically omnipotent. Nothing can hurt her, undefeatable. She can't die. All that, she's the most powerful that she can be there. For Scarlet Witch, and that's because she's linked with the Phoenix Force. That's for Phoenix. For Scarlet Witch, she's linked to the Never Queen. So that means our own realm is the realm of couldn't be, shouldn't be. It's a realm of possibility, and in that realm as well, it's impossible to defeat her. She has omnipotent power. And for Storm, because she's linked to eternity, that realm for her is the universe. So each of them have their own realm. So you can't really say who is the more powerful one. It depends on which realm they face each other. If that battle takes place in the White Hot Room, Wanda will probably get defeated. But if it happens in let's say the land of couldn't be, shouldn't be, the other girls might actually get defeated. And if it's in the universe, Storm will probably come up on top. So it's that kind of thing. So, but if they meet in a neutral ground, yeah, we don't know. So we have to see. So yeah, that's the beauty of the three ladies right now. They
Yeah,
are the
because
peak of that power
there's
right
been
now.
a lot of debates online. Who's more powerful? Is it Wanda? Is it the Phoenix? And now it's always just been them two, right? Now I feel like Storm's starting to get the respect that she deserves, especially with this new power up. Now you got to put her in that conversation. Now it's like,
Yeah.
hey, she's up there now with the Wandas and the Phoenix and things like that. So you shining light on that. I know the internet is gonna go crazy. Now let's talk a little bit about the design and the artist. Lucas, what's his name? I'm sorry, I'm
Lucas
forgetting.
Wernick.
Gwenick.
Yes.
Oh, big shout out to Lucas Gwenick, man. He has been doing a marvelous design with the character. It's like every issue, whether it's the nightgown when she's getting dressed for
Yeah.
Doom, to
The lingerie.
man, yo, he's been cooking. Like, I'm not gonna lie. And I don't mean to sound like that, chat, but come on now. It was a great page. And you got her white suit when she took the form of eternity. And then you have
The black and gold one.
the black and gold one, the base form. And then you have the vibranium one that she just
The
wore.
Vibranium armor. That was by Luciano Vecchio. That one is crazy. That's the costume she's going to use in Thunder War when she's facing all these gods and everything. She's going to be in full armor and fighting everything thrown her way. So it's going to be brutal action. So yeah,
I
it's
love
crazy
it,
stuff.
man. So my question is to you, right? Did you have a little say in the design, or did you have a talk with the artist like, hey, you know what? For Thunder Wars, I want her to have like a vibranium armor, or is that something that he just came up with?
Um, it depends, sometimes, for example, the hair. I specify, sometimes I don't specify. For example, we're going to be revealing a new design for Bishop, Lucas Bishop. And I specify the facial hair, I specify the type of hair would have, but then Lucas does that hair, but puts it in a messy man bun. So, all those kind of little touches. But it's always a collaborative thing because ever from the get-go when I started on this project, I knew I wanted fashion to be a major part because I've always loved fashion in comics, you know. I always crack this joke that there was this cartoon that I really, really loved. And I got my girlfriend at the time to start watching it. And suddenly she just stopped watching it. And I'm like, why did you stop? And she was like, oh yeah, because they were wearing the same thing every single episode. So I just stopped. So it's something that I've always been conscious with it, that I don't want that repetition that you see in a lot of comics, you know. Oh, Spider-Man is wearing this same costume for 300 issues. And you're like, no, you know. So it's like I don't want that. So I want her to have like a set of suits that she wears depending on the mission, you know. If it's proper battle, she wears an armor. If it's superhero stuff, she wears the black and gold one, you know, and different things like that. We're going to even see her wearing space suits and different things. So she's going to be dressed gorgeously and everything. So it's been a collaborative effort in making sure that she looks good and she's dressed appropriately for each of the missions and each of the scenes.
I love it, man. What y'all doing together is making magic right in front of our eyes. And this is something that I hope one day gets adapted, whether it's in a series, a movie. But man, this would make such good material. Like, it's really that good. Now we kind of talked about the inspiration for the Thunder Gods and things like that. Are there any Nigerian myths or folk tales you're itching to adapt into the series or maybe in a later project?
In issue 7, Storm was attacked by 4 thunder gods.
That's right.
Um, yeah, one of the thunder gods is Shango, who is a Yoruba thunder god, and the Yoruba tribe and mythology is predominant in West Africa, including Nigeria and in Brazil. So there's that. There's that. There's a demon that shows up in issue 5 called Egun. You know, it's from Yoruba mythology. There's a spell that voodoo used on her in issue 2, and she used to subdue the thunder gods a little in issue 7. That was called Ile. You know, it's also a Yoruba mythology thing. It's something that when it comes to the Yoruba mythology, I've kind of been in both subtle ways and non-subtle ways. I've been kind of like mixing it up in this story as we go. You know, some you don't notice, you know, but some you might notice. So it's been fun getting to sneak many of them in, and many people don't notice. Even the way the story unfolds itself, you know, when it comes to even Yoruba mythology, you have, you know, beings like called the Orishas. Those are basically like the gods, like Zeus and, you know, the things. There's another type, I've forgotten the names they are called, but they're like the ones like Iku and all this, like they are basically like the cosmic entities, like death, eternity, infinity, you know. So in our own stories too, you get stories where Iku interacts with Shango, like we are saying Thor interacts with death and all those stuff. So it's so the Marvel Universe's way of representing mythos is very similar to the Yoruba mythology, even closer than you would say the Greek mythology, you know. So it's those kind of things that I've been using in structuring the story. The story itself is not structured in typical, you know, Western form of storytelling too. And it's all those approach, all those things that have been taken from, you know, some of the old, you know, bedtime folk tales that my dad told me, you know, as a kid, you know, and taking all those inspiration, even the dark tone that is of which it occasionally takes. It's a lot of it is from, you know, all those Yoruba stories, and you know, so yeah, it's been there, and more of it's coming.
I love that, man. I love that. What's probably the sneakiest Easter egg you've put in the series that people might not have gotten yet, or they might have to go back and be like, "Oh, he put this in here."
Ah, hmm. People have been super observant, so they've been picking a lot of things up. Hmm. Ah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. People have been picking most of it up. People have
And
been
I
picking most
want
of
to
it
I want
up.
to tell you something, man. I am a huge Doctor Doom fan, and I love what you did with Doom in the series. And I know Doom has this big event, and the way you've been crossing him over, the way you crossed him over
Yeah.
into the storm was just chef's kiss. I do want to ask you, right? You've written for gods now, kaiju's, genius, billionaires. What's harder to write? Is it the Tony Stark kind of characters, or the more or godlike characters?
Hmm. Okay. So about the Easter egg, I've gotten one.
Oh, you got one
Um,
for us? Let's go.
in issue in issue 7, I talked about the importance of snakes and serpents, and I it's too sneaky and kind of hidden that it might not be very, very obvious. But in a lot of mythologies, storm gods at some point usually fight serpents, you know, like Thor fought the Midgard serpent, um, Yomuganda or something. Zeus fought Typhon. Susanoo fought Yamata no Orochi, and so many storm gods always have serpent-like beings that they fought, even African gods too. So it's a universal kind of thing. Even Hadad in their story fought Lotan, which is also a serpent too. In issue 7, Storm was supposed to fight a snake, an anaconda that has the super soldier serum flowing in its veins. But because other storm gods showed up and killed it, she never fought it. So she's a storm god that never fought and defeated her own serpent. And that might come to play in a future episode. So it's just a little something that she never got to fight her own snake. It's just a very small thing.
Hey, a very small thing can lead to a very big thing. So I'll be checking for that, man. I kind of like that. So,
Yeah.
what do you
So
think
now
is yeah, what do
the
you think
characters that
was
are
harder to write? The Stony Tark, excuse me, the Stony Stark type of characters, or the godlike beings like Storm?
um I'm not sure. I think they're all fun in their own way. I love writing the gods because the way they talk and everything. Occasionally your own voice might spill out because you're not used to like talking in like grand things. Um, the fun, grounded characters are also there. Hmm. I think maybe characters that have this they are characters that people are very protective of. So maybe those are the characters that I'm like, they might be a little difficult to write because you have to be careful what they say, because then it's interpreted like, oh, this is what you're trying to say. Um, Even though most people are okay with it, but you can see, and this is me taking a risk. So that's the kind of difficulty. It's like, oh yeah, like Black Panther cracking a joke about he
Emma
has a date with
Frost.
Emma Frost. Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yo, man, that was hilarious. That was a crazy shot. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. Yes, that was very funny, but it was a very risky thing that Marvel had to ask the Black Panther editor if it was okay and so many things, because there's a tendency for, you know, there's a for Black Panther fans to feel like you are trying to, because in Black Panther mythos, for example, I think Bast is against T'Challa marrying a white woman and so many other things. There are lots of things, like there's a lot of political messaging and representation thing that is all tied up in all that, cracking that simple joke could be interpreted as you trying to say something that it was might not even be on your mind and everything. So that might be it's the challenge of writing some characters. So it's not like they are more difficult to write or anything. It's just that you just have to be very careful, what you have them say. So yeah,
So
you
it's
can crack a
mostly like
joke,
the
but you have to
side
be careful.
characters. So it's mostly like the side
Yeah.
characters that you got to be careful with. Okay,
Yes, 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 yes.
okay.
But for Storm, the Iron Man, the gods, all the stuff, yeah, it's been fun. I it's even fun writing those two, like, characters that are very different, because then you are sure you're doing your job. Because if all of them are talking like Thor, you might be scared that you're not writing the same characters. But if there's a Thor and there's an Iron Man, they all sound so different. It's just cool.
Yeah, man, you've been doing a remarkable job. One of the hottest, you got the hottest pen in the game right now. I'm not gonna lie. You are cooking. That pen is on fire. How did you land
Thank
your
you.
first gig with Marvel? And like, what was it a pitch, or did you just happen to like they find some type of material of yours that, threw you into the
Yeah,
pot?
I've been trying to get into Marvel for like years, but no success. But then I did this webcomic series called My Grandfather Was a God, and it was online for free. It's a comic that I've my siblings have always criticized me that all your stories always have naked women in it and sexual stuff, and why can't you tell a story that we can show our kids, like basically my nieces and nephews, like write something that we can show kids. So like, okay, okay, okay. I'll do a free web comic with my friend, something that, they will be able to read. So it's called My Grandfather Was a God. It's a story of a little child whose grandfather is, the supreme being of everything. And all of a sudden one day he disappears. And on the day he disappears, monsters flood the earth, and she has to find a way to locate him. It's a very fun story. So I I sent that webcomic to some Marvel editors, including the editor on Storm right now, that I would love you to read this. I think you would like it. And he said during one of his lunch breaks, he read it and he's like, wow, I like this. I would like to work with these guys. So that's how
That's
I
how
got in.
that's how the wheels start turning for you. Hey man,
Yes.
hard work pays off, man. That's why you never give up, man. You always keep doing what you're doing, man. Congratulations, man. That's all I gotta say
Yeah.
because I know you living out your dream right now. And if you could write a full-on ongoing Marvel series, what character would you go for next?
Next, probably Iron Man. Um, I like Iron Man. I like Thor. I think probably Iron Man and Thor.
I could see a
Those might
great
be my
Storm
topic.
series from you, man. The stuff you're doing on a epic scale, because when you think of Thor, like you got to think epic,
Yeah.
cosmic and things like that. And what you're doing with the Storm series, I could really see a great Storm story. I mean, Thor story for you, man. Um, Recently they also announced Marvel and DC has announced that they'll be doing a two one-shot comic event happening, right? The fan service is probably going to be crazy. But what do you think writers should explore when making this event? Because it's been years since since like the 90s, since we got a DC and Marvel team up type thing. And what type of storylines you think they should explore? What type? Because there's going to be a lot of debates and discussions. There's been
hmm
over the years who's strongest, Superman or the Hulk, who's Batman or Moon Knight, things like that. What do you think they should explore in this one shot?
I think there will be a lot of temptation to do team ups. Let's see some of our favorite characters together. Let's see Superman and Spider-Man together. You know, there will be a lot of temptation to do versus stories, or just versus scenes. There will be a lot of temptation for that. Like we have Godzilla versus the Avengers and all those things, maybe a big threat where they have to team up for and everything like that. I think there'll be a lot of temptations to do all that. But I think I would like, I think the more interesting thing is to have something like Secret Wars by Jonathan Hickman, but with those characters, let's see a grand story that's, that has all those things I listed, everything infused into it with a big, robust plot, you know, um, and not just the heroes themselves, sometimes the villains and the concepts, like in Secret Wars where Thanos was riding the annihilation wave, things like that. It shouldn't just be, oh yeah, Thanos and Darkseid teams up or something. What if something like Thanos gets there's this stuff that Darkseid is always looking for. Is it the something equation or something? What if Thanos gets it? What if Mogo has to pilot Ego the Living Planet? Let it be, and something that's robust and has a storyline that crosses all these things. That is not just a simple story. Let's go as big as possible. Yeah, that's what I want to know. And I wouldn't mind if that one shot is 100 pages long.
Yeah, it gotta be, man. Give us like a mini graphic novel, man. It has to be.
Exactly.
Come
It has to be
on.
thick.
And it's well known right now, right, that Marvel and Disney is in early developments on making a reboot for the X-Men. And there's been recent reports that suggest that Marvel wants one thing and Disney wants a completely other thing. And Kevin Feige he's pushing for more of like a grounded X-Men story with a plot that, focuses heavy on social issues and disagreements about what it means to be a mutant. Where Disney, they want the big bang, like they want it to be more powerful, dramatic, and like an epic event, like something like Endgame or something like that. Now, I don't know the conflict going on with Bob Iger and Kevin Feige, but it feels like, right now Marvel and Disney is in like a tug of war match when it comes to the content. Because don't get me wrong, Thunderbolts was really good, but the sales wasn't what they were expecting. And it's been like hit or miss with Marvel movies. Like, we get a great series, then we get something that's trash. We get a good movie, then we get something that's terrible. So it's, and for Disney, it's all about the power of the dollar. So with the MCU rebooting the X-Men, how do you feel like a successful, mind you, because we're coming off the last X-Men movie was like the Dark Phoenix, which I'm sorry, but to everybody that loves that movie, you're entitled to your own opinion. But I did feel like it was a lackluster and it wasn't too good of a movie. But what do you think the MCU has to do for a successful return of the X-Men and introduce it into the grander scope of the MCU?
Number one, it's a little above my pay grade because I've not tried writing the X-Men, so it's not something I've even thought about that much. But just to roughly think about it, at least thinking about some of my favorite X-Men stories, at least in comics, because we've seen that even though Hollywood can be hesitant, there are a lot of lessons that can be learned from what has been successful in comics. And I think everything you've listed you can have both. You can have a grounded story that deals with social issues and everything that is still also a grand epic and all these things. But I think number one is man, I'm not sure because it's tempting to say start with a small cast, start small and everything. But we've seen something as ridiculous as Wolverine and Deadpool 3 that just has random cameos, things that are like, oh, I don't think the regular moviegoer would know what's going on, and for some reason it worked. It was still fun, it was everything. So maybe even if it's stuffed to the brim with so many characters because it's the X-Men, maybe it would make it even more fun. Maybe we are past. Maybe the reason why we think a lot of all these movies are boring or they are not working is because we've passed the era of we're starting a new movie like Iron Man, and we're starting with this grounded story, and it's just one character, and he gradually learns how to use his power. Maybe we are past that. Maybe we're the era where all the movies almost have to be firing at almost the level of Endgame. Maybe that's where the era we are. Maybe the X-Men movie is supposed to start out with, it's already an established world. There are mutants everywhere, and it's like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, where you're just dropped into this world. You're not even sure, and you realize that, oh, this world almost operates like a video game, but you didn't know, just that everybody is just okay with it, So maybe it's just, you just drop us in this world and there are mutants everywhere, and it's just okay, and you can tell big, giant stories, exciting stories, and fun stories with them. So maybe that's the direction. Maybe we're past building up things anymore. For example, for years, people thought, or when it comes to multiverse stories, people would not get it. And then you see a small movie like Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, and just uses that concept beautifully. And people weren't confused as Hollywood thought a lot of people would be confused, and it just worked. So maybe we are past the level of trying to build up stories from scratch again. Maybe that's why some of those movies felt underwhelming. If we had them 10 years ago, they would have been perfect. But now we've had Endgame, we've had Infinity War. So maybe we are past that. So yeah, so maybe that's the thing. Maybe we should just go all out. We should not be worried about, oh, will people get the X-Men? Maybe we should just do the most Deadpool, Wolverine, do the most wacky, exciting thing. All the characters are already there. They already have their powers. They already are in their status quo, and just tell one exciting story of them facing this big conflict and just move. So maybe that might be it. Maybe we are past the time of setup. We are past the time of doing small things and just go big or go home kind of thing.
I agree, because X-Men 97 did a great job at incorporating both those elements within that series. You had the couple of episodes where, they was dealing with the repercussions of Magneto and things like that, and more like grounded type stuff. And, Storm losing her powers and things
yet
like
you have all
that.
those timey-wimey things.
And then we hit episode 6, and we have a huge Sentinel destroying half of Krakoa.
Yeah.
So
and
I
Cable,
do agree.
Cable coming out of nowhere trying to help and all this. And if you notice, they didn't try doing the let's start introducing to all the characters one at a time. Oh, this is Storm. She used to be this person from Kenya. This is this person. They just started the story. Jean Grey is pregnant. This is this, and they just moved.
Yeah, I
and they
agree,
just
man.
moved with it.
I definitely.
And then in the middle, they're like, oh, this person is pregnant. She's a clone. And you're like, what? And I just moved, So maybe that's the route to go with it. That just don't start from the beginning. Just start as though, pretend as though there's already been 2 or 3 other X-Men movies in this universe that we didn't see. Just start there and move. Because the MCU has matured past that level, that we should have a first. I think we should not have a first movie anymore. If you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so I think
like
that's
an
the
origin
problem.
story. The origin story era, I think is pretty done.
So I think that's why some of those movies are feeling weak. I don't think they are actually weak. If you look at the structure and everything, well, it's because we are past first movies. We've had these big events. We are past first movies. The movies now, even though they are first movies, should feel as though this is the fourth one we are watching. So like, when you introduce us to Shang-Chi, all those stuff, it should almost feel like, oh, there's been a Shang-Chi all along, almost like you're having an old man Shang-Chi kind of story. Look at when we watched Logan. Some people had not watched any of the X-Men movies, watched Logan and loved it. Because Logan didn't feel like a first movie. It had matured with the franchise. It wasn't trying to go back to the beginning. It was just saying, this is where the world is now. Let's move forward with it and telling a new story in that world. So I think that might be the route to go. Let's not
I
try to
agree
start
with you.
anything.
I 100%
Yeah.
agree with you. And I think this July, we're going to get that with the Superman movie and with Fantastic Four. I think when we watch both of those movies, they're already going to be established in their
Yeah.
respective universes.
From everything we are seeing in the Superman movie, for example, it doesn't feel like, a movie where the world is just like our world. And then gradually when I got introduced to different things bit by bit. That world feels like that world already has kaijus, that world already has Green Lanterns, that world already has Mr. Terrific, it feels like a world that has existed, the illusion of age. I think those are the kind of superhero stories we can have now. Why did we complain about some new MCU movies, and people said, oh, there's superhero fatigue, but people liked Invincible. Invincible, because of Omni-Man, felt like a world that had already existed, as though there are already like 5 seasons that you didn't watch. There's already the Guardians of the Globe. There's already all these things that you're just getting to know and discover. It's already a world so as we're now moving forward in the story, we're now learning more about things that happened in the past. So I think that's the era of story of superheroes we should be doing now. No more starting from scratch. No more, the world is like our world was slightly different. It should feel like this world has already gone far, and then we are thrust into it. Same thing with The Boys. The Boys doesn't feel like a new franchise when we got introduced to it. It felt like it's been there for ages and we just discovered it.
I even love the spinoff they did with Gen V. My God, like those universes
Yeah.
are really rich, and I can't wait to see season 5 and I believe season 3 or 4 of Invincible. I think 3. I think we just got 3, right? Is it season 4 we're getting?
I'm not sure the numbers too, but I think I'm caught up with everything.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
definitely excited to see what's going on. They even recently released a issue 1 of Battle Beast, so we're getting a lot more Battle Beast in the comics and things like that. So that's pretty dope. Now, moving a little forward. Matter of fact, let me ask you a question because I was thinking about when we was talking about movies. Would you ever write a script for either a show or a movie? Or would you be open
Probably,
to it?
I'll be open to it. A show, most likely, a show more than a movie, but not no to all, but a show most likely. Um, I loved movie. I love movies. I've always loved movies, but I think I've grown addicted to the grand scope of stories you can tell in long form storytelling.
Yeah,
Um,
you like laying out a path and you like the build up.
yeah. So yeah, a 2-hour movie might feel a little too restricting, but it's not a no. Well, yeah.
Let me ask you a
Currently,
question.
in the creative stage I'm in right now, I'm loving serialized storytelling.
So let me ask you a question, right? Right now, Marvel is having extreme trouble, not only keeping directors, but even writers for the Blade movie, right? It's been in development for almost, man, the whole phase went by that it was even supposed to be in. And we're about to go through another phase and still no announcement for it. If you could pitch a Blade movie, what would be your pitch?
Um, I'm not sure about Blade. I think I would just hire some other person. There's Brian Edward Hill. Brian Edward Hill loves Blade a lot and he's doing a fantastic job right now. I might just hire him. I have a friend, Dotun. I might just call him too. I'm not sure I have a Blade pitch in me. at least
Why do
not
you
right
think that
now.
is though? Why do you think it's been like going through different directors, or because we seen with Sinners that the vampire genre is people love
No,
stuff like that.
yeah, I don't even think it's the vampire genre. You know, I'm not even I'm not I don't I'm not sure why it's losing traction. I have no idea why. But sometimes remakes, this is just me having my own speculation. It has nothing to do with anything. Sometimes people don't jump on remakes
Hmm.
because you would always be compared to the previous person and everything. So people would rather make new things than remakes. And the fact that the original Blade movie was so beloved, you know, so yeah, I can see some talents being hesitant to jump on a remake rather than doing something new.
That
Um,
makes perfect sense. I like that because I never thought about that because Wesley
people
Snipes
forget,
iconic for Blade.
yeah, people forget that the first Spider-Man movie in the MCU, that people were scared. People were like, "Oh man, we're going to get another Uncle Ben moment, we're going to get another Uncle Ben." It's because the movie worked. That's why we've forgotten. People were so scared. People were giving out the negative theories and like the first movie was going to be bad because they're like, we just had, Spider-Man by the first Spider-Man. We just had Amazing Spider-Man. It wasn't even over yet. Oh yeah, we're going to have another one in the MCU. Like just people are like, just take me right now, like another Uncle Ben, another this, another that. So people were so happy that they did what we said. For example, the story just took place in a Spider-Man that had already been Spider-Man for years, and just moved on with that. They already had the gadgets, they already had everything. Uncle Ben was already dead, so we just went on with it. So yeah, so I think that's why people were really worried about Spider-Man. So I think Blade, maybe that might also be the thing
Mm.
because it's a
Yeah,
remake.
yeah, I agree with you. Now that you said that, I honestly could see why so many directors and talent been pushed away from the project, or it could be creative differences because Disney and Marvel I don't think they give their directors and that much creative space. But that's another topic for another day. We're coming to the end of the episode, and I'm gonna ask you a couple universal questions that I ask all of my guests, right? But I am gonna switch it up, right? Because usually it's what's your Mount Rushmore of voice actors? What's your top three animes? Things like that. So I'm gonna ask you instead, what are your top three Marvel series of all time?
Um, hmm. Marvel series of all time.
Yeah, comic wise, comic books.
Um, Brian K. Vaughan's The Runaways. Um,
Mm.
I I I love that so much. Um, Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars. That's two. Then three. Hmm. Try to think. I think might be Donny Cates Thanos Wings.
If you could write for any DC character, I meant to ask this before when I was talking about would you write for any other Marvel question. I kind of let this one slip. If you could write for any DC character, what character would it be? Who would you want to write for?
Uh, Wonder Woman is always number one on that list. Uh, Green Lantern is there, especially Joe, the one from Far Sector. Um, Vixen and
Ooh.
Naomi, Batman, Superman. Yeah,
Hey,
those are
give
like the
me
top
all the
ones.
big hitters and some.
Exactly, exactly.
I love it. I love it. Okay, now what's your Mount Rushmore of comic book characters?
Now this is just my own personal taste and everything.
Yeah, this is your list. It wouldn't feel right if it wasn't your list. So, this is your opinion only that matters right now.
Iron Man, Storm, and I know Iron Man and Storm are like there, but let's say two more, right?
Yeah, you got two more. So you got Storm and
Uh,
Iron Man.
hmm, and I love all of them so much. Uh, I think I'll put Thor there.
So you got Thor, Storm, Iron Man. Who's your fourth?
This is a tough one. I'm trying to decide between like Spider-Man and Deadpool and so many other characters. Well, I'll say Spider-Man as number 4.
Hey, speaking of Spider-Man, who do you think's more popular? Period. Him or Superman?
Mm, it depends on your definition of popularity. If it's who is more liked, I would say Spider-Man. But if it's like who just knows the character, it might be Superman. But
Mm.
Spider-Man is so popular, like especially in Africa. Like you can go to like a village somewhere and everything, and you see someone dressed in Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man is crazy popular. Like there are videos, there are all the stuff of Spider-Man, There are they're like they're like African songs on Spider-Man, yeah, all those stuff like nah.
Oh, for
Spider-Man's
real?
popularity is
That's
like, yeah,
fire.
like Spider-Man's popularity is like that
Insane.
is
I would
another
say
level.
Spider-Man too. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't want to be biased because I'm a Marvel fan. And don't get me wrong, I love Superman. He's definitely one of my
I
favorite
think I
characters.
think who is the most known might be Superman because he was the first. But if popularity is about, like who is the most beloved, I think it will be Spider-Man by far.
Okay.
It won't
Now,
even be close.
this one we can go to the comics, animes, books, movies, shows, whatever. Who are your top 5 fictional characters of all time? Your personal list. Who are your top 5 fictional characters of all time?
Anton Sugar from No Country for Old Men. The bad guy in No Country for Old Men that was
Mm.
just like randomly killing people and stuff. Joker, that's one. Yeah, I'm listing villains, I know. Uh
He said, I'm the bad guy right now. All right. We got a villain,
yeah.
heroes.
So Joker, that's one. I do love me some Thanos. And Iron Man.
All right. So you got the villain from Old Country. Country of Old
No
Men.
Country for No
Country
Country for Old
for
Men.
New Country for Old Men. Joker, Thanos, Iron Man. Who's your fifth?
Um, let's see. Think I might go with Darth Vader. But
Ooh, that's a good choice, man. One of the most
yeah.
iconic villains of all time. Hey, so it's Iron Man, the only hero that was on that list. Nah, I love it though. I love that choice. Man, thank you so much for coming on the channel. Before we let you go, what's next for you? And what can fans expect?
What's next is Thunder War, which is going to be is the next story arc in the Storm series. It's the is this is this epic event that the story has been building up to. Like we said, it's going to lead to this epic clash amongst the Thunder Gods in the Marvel universe. We're talking about Thunder Gods from, African pantheons, South American pantheons, European pantheons, all of them. Zeus is going to be there, all of them are going to be there, and it's going to be crazy epic, and Storm is going to be in their midst. We're going to have all the entities too at war with each other. We're talking eternity, infinity, death, oblivion, all of them. It's crazy. It's allow me to say it's like probably some of the biggest Marvel events, and it's happening in the Storm solo series. It's really, really crazy. I know a lot of writers say this, but I genuinely mean it. I did not know Marvel would allow me to do all the crazy shit I get to do there. Galactus is there, Silver Surfer. It's nuts. And people shouldn't miss it. Even if you're not reading the Storm series, you can join us at Storm 10, 11, and 12 to reach Thunder War. And yeah, so.
I can't wait for it, man. I will be there that Wednesday for the pull-up, man. I'm showing up and showing out. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. We had a blast.
Thank you for
Heroes, man. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And where can they follow you at on social media to keep up with the updates?
I'm on Blue Sky. I don't know how the old tag thing on Blue Sky works, but if you just type my name on Blue Sky, I'll pop up. So I'm available on Blue Sky. Ask me any questions. I'm always there to answer your questions. If it's easier about the book, is it about the series? Is there something that is unclear? Do you just want to have a chat? I'm always there. So it's cool.
Amazing. Heroes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe right here on the channel. Links will be provided for you in the description. Make sure y'all lock in, man, and support the Earth's Mightiest Mutant Storm series and many more, because he got the X-MANHUNT Omega series going on right now. Is that going to be a limited series, or how many issues can we expect out of that?
No, it's a 40-page one-shot.
Oh, okay. And we'll I know I might be getting ahead of myself, but me personally, I would like to know, and I'll be mad if I had you here and then asked you, after Thunder War, will the Storm series continue?
Yes, it's going to continue, but it's going to take a new form.
Yes, let's go. I'm so excited, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. Heroes, like I said, man, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Right now, we're doing a Nintendo Switch 2 giveaway. All you got to do to enter is like, comment, and subscribe. The more you support, the more your chances are of winning. We shout out to our last winner who won a PS5, BK Numbers. Thank you so much for your love and support. We'll be announcing the winner at the milestone of 5K. And this video should be out before issue 9 drops. So if you're watching this and you're hyped up for issue 9, make sure you go to your local comic book store and support them comic book stores, man, and buy Storm issue 9. And as always, man, love yourself, pass that love on, and love others. And if nobody told you so, just know your boy love you. Signing out.
Sing it with me,